O programa já vai começar, mas antes eu quero te convidar para se tornar membro do nosso canal aqui no YouTube. Por R$ 14,99 por mês, você tem acesso a conteúdos exclusivos, aprofundando os assuntos mais importantes do momento. E você já segue o IB nas redes sociais? O seu apoio é muito importante para nós. Desejamos a todos um bom programa. Bem-vindas, bem-vindos. Vou ter o prazer de conversar hoje com o Yotam Polizer, que é o CEO global da IsraAID. A IsraAID, para quem não conhece, é a maior organização humanitária de Israel. Começou em 2001 e já atuou em mais de 60 países, nunca tinha atuado em Israel, dentro de Israel, até o 7 de outubro de 2023, precisamente no dia 8 de outubro, entrou em ação em Israel, dando assistência aos sobreviventes de um kibbutz que estavam exatamente ali no Mar Morto, num hotel que foi, na falta de palavra melhor, como diz o Yotam, se tornou uma espécie de campo de refugiados. Eram sobreviventes do kibbutz Be'eri, que foi um dos mais afetados pela, enfim, tragédia do 7 de outubro, mais de 100 pessoas mortas e muitos sequestrados e por aí vai. A gente vai passar para o inglês, agora a gente está fazendo ao vivo, essa entrevista vai ser legendada, então se você preferir depois para assistir a ela ou revê-la legendada, enfim, teremos essa versão. Yotam, welcome. Sorry for the long introduction in Portuguese, but you have, before we went live, we were talking and saying that you have to come to Brazil, and then you have to the chance to learn a little bit of Portuguese.
To learn Portuguese. I speak a lot of languages that are less useful than Portuguese, so it's on my list for sure. Thank you for having me.
And thanks for your time, really, and already congratulations for the work you've been doing. So Yotam, let's begin with a very uncomfortable situation. What's the scenario right now in Gaza concerning the horrifying humanitarian crisis, and where in the Gaza Strip, where is there hunger, where is there no hunger or malnutrition?
Thank you. Look, I will be very honest and open here, and I will share that I've been doing this work for 15 years. I worked in places like Afghanistan, Syria, Ukraine, Fukushima in Japan, even Sierra Leone in West Africa during the Ebola. I've been all over the place, but the situation in Gaza is really, really bad. It's really, really bad from a humanitarian perspective, because we have to remember that Gaza is very different than many of the other war zones where we've been operating. The big difference is that the active fighting and the place where the population is are just in one condensed area. You know, in the case of Ukraine, where we've been operating since the Russia invasion in 2022, most of the population who were in the active war zone, they went to Poland, they went to Western Ukraine, they flee for safety. In the case of Syria, where we also worked for many years during the civil war, people moved to Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, Greece, Germany, which is where we supported them. Very few stayed in the actual war zone. In the case of Afghanistan, we helped a group of Afghan girls escape Afghanistan. I was actually there on the border for 2 months, pulling out these Afghan girls. And when the Taliban took over, again, the main fighting area was not where the population was. So, and that's the biggest difference. Gaza is completely different. So you have a very small piece of land, 2.3 million people, and the biggest challenge when it comes to Gaza is the balance between the security situation and the humanitarian needs. And I don't want to say that it's impossible, but it's almost impossible to balance between these two. We've also seen so many times and heard so many times how Hamas is using the civilian as human shields. So this complex environment and created a very difficult mission, which is, again, to fight Hamas, but also provide humanitarian aid. And that's been a challenge from the beginning. It's not just in the last few weeks. In the last few weeks, it became everywhere in the media, but the challenge has been there from the beginning. And the policy of Israel towards humanitarian aid changed many times during the last 22 months. In the last 6 months, we've had a ceasefire in January where our hostages were released and a lot of aid was coming in. And then the ceasefire collapsed, and Israel tried to pressure Hamas to agree for another hostage deal. And then nothing came into Gaza for 2.5 months. And then a new mechanism was introduced, but there was a deficit that was created. And it's an issue of supply and demand. And we know that Hamas was taking over some of the aid. So right now, we are reaching a place where some pockets of Gaza, not all of Gaza, but some pockets of Gaza are suffering from severe malnutrition because some of them didn't have regular access to food for a very long time. Now, we are speaking today. Today is what the date is, the 20th of August. In the beginning of August, we were in a much worse position. So the situation is getting a little bit better because in the beginning of August, Israel changed its policy and decided to flood Gaza with aid. And we had a situation in August 1st where 1 kg of flour was a little bit over $100 US dollars. Now we're down to about $12, $13. So it's down almost 90%. Kilo of sugar was $150. Now it's $15. It's still expensive. It's still much more expensive than Brazil or Israel, but it shows you that the supply is much higher now than what it used to be 3 weeks ago. So now I believe that in order to prevent human catastrophe, we just need all hands on deck, and we need to work together with Israel, with the international community to prevent starvation. I'm not getting into the blame game, Leila, and I think you may want to ask, and I think what everyone is dealing with is who is blamed. I think it's important, but more important is how we prevent human catastrophe, how we save lives. And the only way to do it right now is to work together with Israel and for Israel to be part of the solution and not as many big parts of the world see us as part of the problem.
You gave an interview like 2 weeks ago to Dan Senior, who hosts the Call Me Back podcast.
Right.
And it's very interesting because you explain that your organization builds bridges, right? And that you work in partnership with UN, for instance, UNICEF. Also, well, the IDF, that's necessary too, but all the countries, all the organizations, right? And this collective work is fundamental right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the only way that we can make it work. And unfortunately, we are the only organization right now that talks to everyone and try to bring everyone together because so many people, and again, I think the media is not helping, I have to say, is focused on the blame game. And it makes you think that people have a political agenda instead of a humanitarian agenda. Our agenda is only humanitarian. It's always been humanitarian way before October 7. As I mentioned, we have worked not only in Ukraine, we worked in countries like Afghanistan and Syria that don't have diplomatic relation with Israel. And we're doing it purely because of the human suffering and because we feel like we can make a difference. And right now, in the context of Gaza, we realized that, in the beginning, when it all started, I thought that we can't get involved because we are Israelis, because we're called IsraAID. But then I realized that that's actually our advantage because we are the only organization that understands both sides. And we understand it right now. In order to be very pragmatic and solve these issues, we really have to balance, again, between Israel's security and the humanitarian needs. And we have the trust of the humanitarian community. We've been working with them, including with the UN, including with many organizations like World Central Kitchen and others that we've been working with around the world. And we are Israelis, so we have the relationship with the Israeli authorities and with the IDF. And specifically in the IDF, there's one unit called Kogat that is coordinating all of the aid going into Gaza. And we have been working very, very closely with them to solve these problems and issues, and to build these bridges. And again, it's been extremely, extremely challenging. And at this point of time, the reason I spoke out at this podcast, and I'm speaking to you now, and I spoke at CNN and Fox and many other publications, is because I realized we got to a point where everyone is playing the blame game and not enough people or organization are focused on saving lives. And I'm really talking about everyone. So the problem is not just from one side. The problem is from all sides right now.
But you cannot have boots on the ground in Gaza. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because you began operating in Israel on October 8th, 2023. And then after what happened to the World Central Kitchen workers, right, you decided we'll have to do something in the Gaza Strip as well. And that's how you began. But you cannot have personnel there in Gaza, right? And then you managed to get things inside the Gaza Strip. I mean, medicine and equipment for hospitals and food, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So we cannot be boots on the ground in Gaza because that will put our staff at risk and also whoever works with us at risk. Even when I'm talking to you, I can't share the names of many of our partners on the ground in Gaza because we don't want to put their lives at risk. So the way we operate is we are providing all the solution, the logistical, the facilitation, and coordination support from Israel. And again, that's also part of the policy. In the beginning of the war, the official policy was that nothing comes in from Israel. The things that came in came through Egypt. Then, after a couple of months, Israel opened the crossing and the policy changed. So now, as an Israeli, if I want to buy medicine, I can buy it in Israel. And it makes a lot of sense because it's much more efficient. I don't have to ship it from the other side of the world. I can buy it here. I can support the local economy, and I can bring it quickly to our partners in Gaza. So that's what we've been doing. We sent more than 350 trucks. We are providing access to clean water. We sent 30 doctors, not from Israel, from a neighboring country into Gaza. We are also supporting some of the medical evacuations for people who are wounded in Gaza to also other countries in the region that are treating them. So we're really serving as this logistics hub, facilitation and coordination group that is here just purely to solve problems. And look, we have reached already through our work almost 200,000 people, 194,000 as of yesterday, through these different programs and different support. But of course, when we're talking about the acute needs of 2.3 million people, we are scratching the surface, so we need to do much more, and we need more partners and supporters for this work.
And do you need more money as well in terms of donations? How are you doing?
Yeah, so we are raising $10 million for Gaza, and again, it's not enough. It's obviously considering the needs, it's small, but we do think that we can reach, with this $10 million, we can reach 500,000 people through direct aid, through the different programs that I mentioned. We have raised 70%. We have raised close to $7 million right now, so we still have 3 more to go. But again, if there's people who want to support more, obviously the needs are bigger. In Israel, just since October 7, we invested $21 million in 16 communities in the south. Now we are also focusing on recovery of communities in the north. During the Israel-Iran war, we supported about 6,000 people who lost their homes. So there's a lot of support programs still ongoing in Israel, and budget-wise, it's still a bigger program. But obviously, the needs in Gaza are insane. So we really need to ramp up our support, and we are looking for more funding. What I'm happy to share is that, especially since we started to share these stories, many donors are reaching out, especially people from the Jewish communities around the world and in Israel too. I think that are seeing these images, they feel helpless. They feel like they want to do something, but they also want to make sure that the aid is actually reaching the people who need it, that it's coordinated with the IDF, that the organizations that are on the ground are vetted and approved. And that's why they are doing it with us, because it provides them all these assurances as opposed to just donating it to random organizations.
And you get no government money, right?
Correct. We are not getting any significant government funding. We did had partnerships before with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel for specific programs, but it's a very small part of our budget, and nothing is related to Gaza, because we really want to keep our non-political agenda. We want to make sure there's no people don't suspect that we are trying to do anything political about it. We purely want to help people. That's our goal.
And what's necessary right now? I mean, meals more than just flour and sugar and whatever, because people don't have the means to cook, right? And field hospitals, for instance, because the ones that existed have been destroyed. So, what's the utmost necessity right now?
So thank you. No, look, first of all, when it comes to food, I think what we all need to understand is that when we reach this level of severe malnutrition, again, not the whole population, but some pockets of the population, and especially children and elderly, people who are more vulnerable, just more flour, more bread, or more rice is not going to do it. They need vitamins, they need vegetables, they need nutritional supplements. So a lot of our work right now is to bring these formulas, these nutritional supplements that are basically part of a medical treatment for people with severe malnutrition. So that's very much needed. When it comes to the medical situation, yes, you pointed out a lot of the actual hospitals were there was active fighting there. So there is a need for field hospitals. There are more than 10 field hospitals operating in Gaza, but there's a need for more. So we are supporting some partner organization to build more field hospitals, to bring in more medicine. Medical evacuation is very important, because even with field hospitals, a lot of them don't have the capacity to provide specific surgeries or, for example, long-term cancer treatments, etc. So you need to support these medical evacuations. Some countries are taking people from Gaza, not enough, but the UAE, especially the United Arab Emirates, and they're in a unique position because of the Abraham Accords. They're able to do more with Israel to support the people in Gaza, and we are also part of this effort. And access to clean water. Look, the water sources in Gaza, many of them have been contaminated or destroyed. So we're also working on these water desalination projects. We're right now providing access to clean water for 7,000 people every day. But again, the need is much, much bigger. And we are not even touching, Leila, the long-term needs, the recovery needs, which, talking about mental health or education or livelihood and income. And we are not there yet. Right now, it's really about alleviating suffering and human life. And again, I don't know, and you don't know, and unfortunately, I don't know who knows what the day after in Gaza would look like. So right now, really, the focus is about preventing or minimizing the suffering. But I think it's important to start think about, what the future would look like, not just from a political perspective, but from a recovery needs. And the last thing I'll say is that we are very worried also about the coming winter. I mean, we're still in August, but many people don't have the most basic shelters. So we are planning to focus more on tents and shelters in the near future, and that's going to be costly. And we will need a lot of support.
And where in Gaza is the situation worse? In the north? Would that be in the north?
Yeah, it's in the north, because that's the area where there's the highest level of fighting, and that's where access is very challenging because of the fighting. And so many organizations really struggle to get their supplies there. We have seen many of the trucks that were going there We've seen them being looted. Again, in most cases, it's not exactly looted. It's basically just desperate group of people who are jumping on and taking whatever they can. So it's been really challenging to bring in supplies there. We have, talking to our partners and colleagues, we've seen more supplies coming in there now. So the situation is improving there too, but it's much more concerning than the South.
Do you picture yourself going there, and have you been to Gaza before? I mean, before October 7th? Because, you talked about in the podcast about a dehumanization. And this is so serious. And getting to know each other, to look into someone's eyes, right? That changes everything. So I keep thinking that would be so transformative to all partners involved.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think that dehumanization is, by the way, from all sides. It's not just towards people in Gaza; it's towards Jewish people, it's towards Israeli people, it's towards everyone involved. Um, but I think it's so important, this human connection. Look, we now have in our team Palestinian people working for IsraAID. We are interacting on a daily basis with our partners on the ground, and already they told us how much, just being interacting with us changes their perspective. One of my closest partner in this is a Palestinian woman, who is one of the bravest people I know, and she said that, again, we are not putting our logo because we don't want to put anyone at risk, but she says that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people in Gaza who knows that there is an Israeli organization helping them, and it really, really changed people's perspective. She also told me something that I always share, and we are now starting to work with another partner on a new initiative to help orphans in Gaza. The estimate is that there are about 30,000 orphans just because of this war.
Wow.
So we know that they need a lot of help, like every orphans who lost, their parents. But also, we know that these orphans are at the higher risk to be radicalized, and that's why it's even more important to support them. A, because of the humanitarian needs, but B, because we want to prevent radicalization. We want to de-radicalize, and I think the future of these children, especially these orphans, is so important. So going back to your question, for me to be able to lead an organization that is supporting orphans in Gaza, and by doing so is saving their lives, but also preventing them from going in the wrong direction in the future. I'm doing it, for these orphans, but I'm also doing it for my children. I have 6-year-old twins. I'm doing it also because of their future.
Wow. And if you could choose the day after, if you could choose the path you consider the right one for this war to end, and for a peaceful future for all the stakeholders involved, Israelis and Palestinians and everybody else, what's your dream?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I wish more people would think about it, right? Like, including the leaders of the region. I talk a lot about the concept of post-traumatic growth, PTG. I actually gave a TED talk about it a few years ago. It's this notion that, and I've seen it in the worst places in the world. I've been doing this work for 15 years. I went to 85 countries. Israel worked in 64 countries. So I've seen how in the worst situation, the worst disasters, whether it's a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, there's always the opportunity not just to bounce back to where we were before the disaster, but to bounce forward. And that's the concept of post-traumatic growth, that we can build back better. And that's my hope for the region, for Gaza and for Israel, and for the south of Israel where we worked with. And it's hard to imagine that. Obviously, now it's still so painful. We still have our hostages there, one of my mentors was killed on October 7th. It's a woman who was actually a peace activist. Um, and so it's still so painful, and it's very hard to see. But again, my hope is that because this has been so painful for people in southern Israel, for people in Israel, for people in the Jewish community, and of course for the people in Gaza, that it will help everyone here and the big majority of people on both sides to do everything we can to make sure that we build a safer future for everyone here. And again, I really do think it might be a cliche, but it's that the only way to do it is if we work on this together. So I'm not in a position to plan the political scenario. Um, but again, I do see, and I know it's hard for people to see hope in this situation, but I am hopeful and I am optimistic that we will be able to build back better, both in Gaza and in the south of Israel, and to work together and collaborate. I mean, that's the only way forward.
Wow, that's so good to hear, really. And
We have a
as
lot
you
of work for that, Leila. We can't just let
yes,
it
of
happen.
course,
It's not
of
going to
course.
happen by itself. I think that's the other thing that I realized, that politicians, leaders, I mean, it's just not going to happen by itself. We definitely, I see our role in the humanitarian and the recovery, but we will need the business community, we will need the education, we will need to work on this together. And it's important not just to save lives, it's important in order to prevent suffering on our side too.
And as you said, um, good things can come out of tragedies. You met your wife in Fukushima, right?
Yeah, exactly. We call it disaster dating. Some dates turn into disasters. We had many of those, right? And some disaster turn into a date. Yes, good things can come up. It's not where I was planning to meet my wife, but that's where I met her. And we now live together in Israel, and we have two, beautiful twins. So, yeah, good things could happen from it for sure.
Mm-hmm. And what do you make of this bicultural relationship? Because I understood she's a Japanese, right? She was born in Japan. Am I right?
Yeah. Japanese is how I call her, because she became, yes, she was born in Japan. She never been to Israel before meeting me, and but she really loves this country and the people and the culture, and my family, and my family loves her more than they love me. So it worked well, and our children speak Hebrew, Japanese, and English. um, and she's doing a lot of really interesting business development between Japan and Israel. So it worked well for many perspectives. Of course, it's not always easy, but I'm calling you from Tel Aviv. She's right now with our kids in Japan. I'm going back there next week, then just for a short break, and then coming here because now our work is focused on here. So um, yeah, it's not necessarily an easy journey, but so far it's worth the ride.
And after all, it's about building bridges as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I gave my TED talk about how disasters can turn into opportunities, um, the the last slide of my talk was how I met my wife in the tsunami, and then the audience was like, "Oh, yeah." It's definitely about building bridges.
Yotam, thank you so much for your time once again. And once again, congratulations, really. And I'm sure many of our viewers will reach out, will try
Yeah.
to aid
But
Israel aid somehow, donate or something. And thank you so much. And you
But
have to
by the
come to
way, I
Brazil.
saw Leila. Sorry to jump in, but I saw a question coming up, which I think is very important. So,
Sure,
um,
please.
because the question was how we prevent radicalization apart from offering nutritional aid.
Yeah.
So we are supporting right now the establishment of a big orphanage, which is going to build a new educational curriculum for these children. Is already providing them food, and this educational curriculum is going to be developed and focusing also on de-radicalization. and again, without a political agenda, but really just helping these kids develop and deal with the emotional and the trauma that they're facing, and helping them be kids, which is, by the way, programs that we are doing around the world with children in refugee camps. So this is the pilot project that we are starting, and I hope this one will grow because I think the need is huge. Again, first to provide humanitarian aid, but also to prevent radicalization.
And how worried are you about the radicalization of part of the Jewish population in Israel? Because it makes things more difficult, right?
I'm worried about the whole region, honestly. I'm worried about Israel. I'm worried about the Jewish community. I'm worried about Gaza. I'm worried about the West Bank. I'm worried about I'm worried about all radicalization in all the area, but I'm also optimistic on all these sides, again, because we are working, by the way, and that may be something kind of is still kind of under the radar, but we are planning to do work not just in Gaza. We're starting to do some work in Syria. I hope that we will be able to do work in Lebanon too in the future. There are humanitarian needs across the region, and again, I think that there's just not enough collaborations to support this recovery. And Israel, an organization like IsraAID, who represent the Israeli civil society, have so much to offer in these crises. So again, I hope that these partnerships in building bridges and saving lives will be across the region.
Impressive, really. You should be very proud of your work. Thank you so much, Yotam.
Thank you, Leila.
Arigatou gozaimasu. Toda raba. Thank you. Muito obrigada, pessoal, pela companhia, pela audiência.
De nada.
A little bit you know, right? E espero que vocês tenham gostado dessa conversa, tanto quanto eu gostei, e até a próxima. Bye, Yotam.
Tchau.